We talk a lot about grit, that powerful mix of passion and perseverance, like it's the key to everything long term.
Mm.
But maybe the real secret sauce, the thing holding grit up, is something else entirely. What's your thinking on what's really underneath it all?
Yeah, you've kind of hit the nail on the head there. It really boils down to belief. Angela Duckworth, who really brought grit into the spotlight, she points straight to Carol Dweck's work on the growth mindset. She says that's the best idea for building grit.
Ah, okay. So grit is the way, keeping that passion going, putting the effort, and growth mindset is the how. It's like the operating system running underneath.
Yeah.
The belief that lets you keep going when inevitably things get tough.
Precisely. When you hit those roadblocks.
Right. So that's our mission for this deep dive. Really unpack these two mindsets, see how the growth one fuels resilience, and look at the science, neuroplasticity. Your brain can actually change, and importantly, how you can actually foster your own growth mindset, maybe even through language. Okay, let's dive in. So Dweck talks about this core split, fixed versus growth mindset. Let's break down the fixed mindset a bit more. This is where you fundamentally believe your abilities, intelligence, talent, whatever, are just static. You've got a certain amount, and that's that. The real danger here, I think, is it makes your main goal just to look smart and avoid looking, dumb, sometimes even more than actually learning.
And that belief, it has huge effects on behavior. If you're kind of stuck in that fixed mindset, challenges feel threatening. They threaten that smart label, so you tend to avoid them. And effort. Effort starts to feel like proof you aren't talented. If I have to try this hard, I mustn't be a natural.
Yeah, that's rough.
And failure. It's not just a setback, it feels like a final judgment on who you are. It often just makes people stop trying altogether. Like someone saying, oh, I've just never been good with numbers. That fixed idea, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because they basically give up before they even start.
But then the flip side is the growth mindset. Here, abilities aren't carved in stone. You see them as things you can develop, through hard work, through dedication, your brain, your talent. That's just where you begin. And this view, it fosters a completely different way of moving through the world. And here's where it gets really interesting for resilience. How does this belief system actually help you bounce back?
It fundamentally changes the meaning of failure. In a fixed mindset, like we said, failure feels like this huge blow to the ego, proof you can't do it. But with a growth mindset, failure is just data. Information.
Not a verdict.
Not at all. It's reframed. It's a chance to learn something, an opportunity to adjust and get better. In fact, some research shows people strongly in a growth mindset often don't even label it failing. They see themselves as learning.
Wow.
And that perspective is what allows them to keep going when others might just throw in the towel. And what's so cool here, this isn't just like positive thinking fluff. It's grounded in actual biology. Neuroplasticity.
Right, the brain's ability to change.
Exactly. Your brain isn't fixed. It's constantly changing, adapting, reorganizing itself throughout your entire life. Every time you learn something new, practice a skill, even when you struggle, you're physically strengthening neural connections. Think of it like building mental muscle or forging new paths in tall grass. The more you walk them, the clearer they get.
Okay.
And critical mistakes are actually essential for this. That feeling of frustration when something's hard.
Right.
When you just don't get it yet. That's literally your brain firing up, breaking old connections, forming new ones. It's actively growing. Knowing this is possible, physically possible, that really empowers the belief that you can change and improve.
That science part is incredibly powerful. Just knowing your brain can rewire itself. But okay, the big question then is, how do we actually do this? What are the practical things you can do to cultivate this growth mindset for yourself? Let's get into some tools. One really simple but actually profound strategy is about mindful language. Specifically, the power of adding one tiny word, yet. So instead of thinking or saying, I'm not good at this.
Which sounds so final.
Right. You just add it, yet. I'm not good at this yet. It totally shifts it from a final verdict to just a temporary situation.
Yeah.
It signals that, improvement is expected.
And speaking of language, there's a really important point about praise, one that feels a bit counterintuitive at first. Praising someone's innate intelligence, saying things like, wow, you're so smart, can actually be harmful.
Really? Why is that?
Because it reinforces that fixed idea that smartness is just a gift you either have or don't. It can make people, especially kids, afraid to tackle hard things.
Because they might fail and lose that smart label.
Exactly. So instead, the research strongly suggests praising the process. Praise the effort they put in, the different strategies they tried, their persistence, how they improved over time. So rather than, you're so smart, Try something like, wow, I really liked how you kept trying different ways to solve that problem. Or, you really stuck with that, even when it got tricky.
So you're linking success to things they can control.
Precisely. You're teaching them that success comes from actions, from effort, from learning. That builds that internal story of growth.
Okay, so pulling this all together, mindset isn't just some nice-to-have soft skill. It's really the bedrock, the scientifically proven foundation for grit. And the good news is, it's something we can actively cultivate through conscious effort, through the language we use, both talking to ourselves and others. It's a lifelong thing, for sure.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought on that. Every single one of us, parents, teachers, managers, friends we are, whether we realize it or not, kind of like mindset programmers, the words we choose aren't trivial. They actively shape the core beliefs that fuel someone else's resilience, their motivation, their grit, potentially for years down the line. It's quite a responsibility, really.
That's a powerful point. So for everyone listening, maybe 2 quick things you can try right away. First, just notice when you hear that phrase, I'm not good at this, either from yourself or someone else, and consciously just mentally add .yet. See how that small shift feels. And second, maybe pick one small thing this week, a task, a skill, something you've been avoiding because it feels hard or you think you're bad at it. Approach it not necessarily expecting instant success, but with the belief that putting in focused effort will lead to getting better. And try to celebrate the process of learning itself, whatever the immediate result. We're often told, that success is really for the naturals, the super talented. But for a lot of us, that idea feels, well, a bit limiting. What if real achievement isn't just innate skill? What if it's something else entirely? Today, we're diving deep into that question, looking at Angela Duckworth's fantastic bestseller, Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance.
Yeah, it's a great one. Duckworth's own background is fascinating too. Teaching, consulting, academia, even a MacArthur Genius Grant. And she argues that what really drives outstanding achievement isn't raw talent so much as this thing she calls grit.
Grit. Okay, so what exactly is grit?
Well, at its core, it's this blend of sustained passion and perseverance over the long haul.
She has that famous line, right? Grit is living life like it's a marathon, not a sprint. Why do you think that resonates so much?
I think it's because it kind of democratizes success. It tells you, look, it's not just about being born brilliant. It suggests success is tied to character, something you can actually work on and develop. That gives people real hope, Agency.
Okay, so agency through effort. Let's get specific. How does Duckworth define grit precisely?
She puts it as the tendency to sustain interest in and effort toward long-term goals. It's that combination again, passion plus persistence, not just for a week, but for years.
And this leads her to a really interesting, almost counterintuitive idea about effort, that the effort counts twice formula. Can you unpack that for us?
Absolutely. It's a neat way to think about it. First step, talent times effort equals skill. So yeah, talent might make learning faster, but without putting in the work. Duckworth says talent is basically unmet potential, just an idea of what could be.
Okay, so effort turns talent into actual skill.
God.
What is the second part?
So once you have the skill, you need effort again. That's the second multiplication. Skill times effort equals achievement. Without that second round of effort, your skill is just, well, what you could have done but didn't.
Wow. So effort is like this powerful multiplier. It's not just an add-on, it's fundamental. Twice.
Exactly. That's why she argues it's so much more important than talent. And the passion part here isn't just fleeting excitement.
Right. It's not about chasing every new shiny thing.
Precisely. It's about pursuing the same ultimate goal in an abiding, loyal, steady way for a long time. You deepen your interest, find novelty within your field.
That makes sense. Deepening, not constantly switching. So the good news is this grit, it's not fixed. We can actually build it.
Yes, definitely. That's the core message. Duckworth identifies 4 key psychological assets, sort of like pillars that support grit, and they can be developed.
Okay, pillar number 1.
Interest. You got to genuinely connect with what you do. But it's not just about finding that initial spark. It's about actively cultivating and deepening that interest over time, finding new angles within it, resisting that urge to just start something new all the time.
Okay, cultivate interest. What's next?
Practice. And not just any practice. She means deliberate practice. This is really specific. It's planned activity where the challenge is just slightly beyond your current skill level. It's hard work, really effortful, and crucially, you need immediate and informative feedback to adjust.
So different from just getting lost in flow. This sounds more strenuous.
It is. Flow feels effortless. Deliberate practice is often anything but. The third pillar is purpose.
Purpose. Connecting your work to something bigger than yourself.
Exactly. Think of that old parable about the three bricklayers. One says he's laying bricks, another says he's building a wall, but the third says he's building the house of God. That sense of contributing to the well-being of others, that's purpose. It fuels perseverance.
Interest, practice, purpose. And the last one.
Hope. But not just wishing. It's the belief that your own efforts can improve your future. It ties into having a growth mindset, believing your abilities aren't fixed, they can be developed. Setbacks aren't permanent failures, they're learning opportunities.
And these 4 pillars, interest, practice, purpose, hope they work together.
Right.
Reinforce each other.
Absolutely. It's like a virtuous cycle.
Right.
Interest fuels practice. Practice builds skill and hope. Purpose gives meaning to the effort.
And we see this play out in real life. Duckworth gives examples, yeah.
Loads of them. West Point cadets sticking it out, teachers in really tough schools, even national spelling bee champs. She also really stresses mentorship and coaching. Nobody hits their peak alone, she says. You need that guidance and feedback.
And the environment matters too, doesn't it? The idea of gritty cultures.
Huge. Yeah. She says basically, if you want to be grittier, join a group where grit is the norm, where everyone perseveres. These cultures are demanding, sure, but they're also supportive. It makes sticking with things easier when it's just what people do.
So for listeners, what are some practical takeaways, besides joining a gritty team?
Well, you can start with self-assessment. She actually developed a grit scale. Embracing challenges instead of shying away. For younger people, she highlights things like extracurriculars because they tend to be both hard and interesting, forcing you to stick with something. Mindset work is key too.
It's a powerful message, isn't it? That this thing called grit, this combination of passion and perseverance.
It actually predicts success, real-world measured success, even when you account for IQ or cognitive ability. Duckworth's research suggests it's often a better predictor than sheer talent.
Which leaves us with a really big question to think about, doesn't it? If effort truly counts twice, and if grit consistently outperforms IQ in predicting who achieves great things, well, what does that mean for how we should approach education? Or hiring, or even how we raise our kids? Should we be fundamentally shifting our focus away from identifying innate talent and towards systematically cultivating this kind of diligence and resilience? Something to definitely mull over.
Welcome to the deep dive. So most of us have heard about Angela Duckworth's work on grit, right? You know, the idea that passion and perseverance are just crucial for success. But here's where things get interesting based on our sources, including Duckworth's own later thinking. What if grit isn't just, well, this fixed thing inside you? What if it's something you can actually build actively? We're diving into what's called the grit ecosystem. It's less about finding grit and more about situational agency. That's this really cool idea of deliberately shaping your environment to help you stick with things. Okay, let's unpack this a bit.
It's a great perspective because it suggests grit is, well, it's an emergent quality. It doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. It actually arises from how we interact with everything around us. And we've kind of zeroed in on 4 main pillars here: the parental greenhouse, the social current, the organizational forge, and the guiding light of mentors.
Okay, let's start at the beginning then. The parental greenhouse. This is where it all starts, really, those early seeds of grit. The research points strongly towards something called wise parenting. It's this powerful combination of being demanding but also really supportive.
Exactly. High demandingness and high support. It's not about being bossy, like, do it because I said so. Yeah. It's more authoritative, which means, setting clear, high expectations because you genuinely believe in your child's potential. And then, crucially, offering warm, consistent support while they try to meet them. The message is basically, look, I expect a lot because I know you can do it and I've got your back the whole way. It's powerful.
And here's something really practical that came up. Duckworth's hard thing rule. This sounds fascinating. It's like a family commitment.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone in the family, kids and parents, picks a hard thing, something that needs regular practice.
Okay, so everyone's doing something challenging. How does the quitting part work? Because, sometimes things just don't work out.
Right. Quitting is allowed. But the rule is you can't quit just because you had a bad day or got frustrated. You stick with it until there's a natural stopping point, like maybe the end of the sports season or the end of the music lessons for the semester.
Ah, okay. So commitment, but with built-in flexibility.
And, really important, Everyone chooses their own hard thing. That autonomy piece is key. It builds that internal drive, not just compliance.
And the parents doing it too. That's modeling.
Right. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Showing kids you struggle, you get knocked down, but you get back up. That's huge. It also relates to letting kids struggle a bit longer sometimes. Like letting them wrestle with opening that tricky raisin box for an extra minute before jumping in. Builds self-reliance.
Okay, so the family lays the groundwork. Then what? How does the world outside the home shape our grit? That sounds like the social current.
Yeah, the social current, it's all about peer influence. It's kind of amazing how contagious attitudes and behaviors are.
Contagious? How so?
Well, partly subconsciously, we just naturally mimic people around us, but also consciously. Our friends, our peer group, they shape our identity, what we think is normal, even our habits.
Like that saying, you're the average of the 5 people you spend most time with.
Exactly that. It really seems to hold water when it comes to grit, which leads to this idea of curating your circle.
Curating your circle, meaning being intentional about who you hang out with.
Pretty much. Actively seeking out people who model the kind of perseverance you admire. Think about joining a study group where everyone is super motivated versus one where, well, they're not. And it's not just watching them, it's the support too. Emotional backup, sharing information, just feeling like you belong, that really helps buffer you when things get tough.
Okay, moving on from friends to, well, work. That's a big one for adults. The organizational forge. How does our workplace build or break our grit?
Leadership. It really seems to be the cornerstone. Leaders who model perseverance themselves, who don't give up easily. That sets a powerful tone. And they need to establish a clear, compelling purpose. Why are we doing this hard work?
Right, purpose matters. And gritty cultures, they don't just happen, you said. They're designed.
Yeah, designed. Things like hiring practices, looking for evidence of grit on resumes, like sticking with something for multiple years.
Okay, what else?
Using the language of growth, praising effort and strategy, not just innate talent. So instead of, you're a natural, it's, wow, your practice is really paying off. Subtle shift, big impact. Oh, and robust feedback loops. People need to know how they're doing and how to improve.
Makes sense.
But there's a really important caveat here. While that drive from leaders is good, it absolutely needs to be balanced with support for well-being. Otherwise, you just get burnout.
Good point. A gritty culture shouldn't be a brutal one.
Definitely not.
Okay, last pillar. The guiding light of mentors. This isn't just about lucking into finding someone, is it? The sources frame it as more strategic.
Exactly. Part of that situational agency. Again, actively seeking mentorship. Because, wow, a single conversation with the right person can sometimes save you months of banging your head against a wall.
So what do mentors actually do for grit?
They provide emotional ballast, like a steadying force when you hit setbacks. They offer perspective, plus wisdom, specific feedback that helps you learn faster, and just confidence. Knowing someone experienced believes in you. That's incredibly powerful.
And Duckworth's definition is quite broad, isn't it?
Yeah, very flexible. A mentor is basically anyone who has something to teach you. Could be for a moment, a season, or a lifetime. Doesn't have to be this formal, lifelong thing.
So bringing this all together, what's the big takeaway for you listening?
I think it's that grit isn't just this predetermined thing you either have or don't. It's cultivated. It grows in the right conditions.
Right. And the really empowering part is you can build those conditions. You can actively shape this ecosystem around yourself.
So maybe take a moment to think about your own grit environment. How does it stack up across these 4 areas? Your family, your friends, your workplace, your mentors?
Yeah, where are the strengths? Where could you maybe cultivate things a bit more? And here's a final thought to leave you with. How can you become a more active architect of your own grit ecosystem? And maybe just as importantly, how can you be a positive part of someone else's, a grit role model for the people around you? Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're cutting through some of the noise around a concept that gets talked about a lot.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
It really is. It's central to long-term success, whether you're an educator, an entrepreneur, anyone really aiming for those big goals. We're talking about grit.
Exactly. And our mission today for this deep dive is to really unpack the key insights from Angela Duckworth's work, particularly her big book, Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance.
Right.
We want to get into what grit really is, maybe how it's measured, and crucially, why it might actually be more important than just raw talent.
Okay, let's unpack that right away then. When we talk about grit, What are we actually defining here? Because I think sometimes it just sounds like, toughing it out.
That's a really good point. It's more nuanced. Duckworth defines it as passion and perseverance for long-term goals.
Passion and perseverance. Okay.
Yes, both. It's not just that quick burst of effort. It's about like sticking with things over the very long term until you master them. Think of it more like a marathon, definitely not a sprint. It's that sustained drive, that focus day in, day out towards something you care about deeply. That's the core of it.
That makes sense. It's a powerful idea. But then the big question, I think, for a lot of people is how does this grit thing stack up against what we usually value, like, say, IQ?
Yeah.
Or just natural talent?
Yeah, and this is where her research gets really, really interesting.
Okay.
Duckworth found that grit is largely unrelated to talent or IQ. Sometimes even negatively correlated in some samples.
Wait, really? Unrelated or negatively?
Yeah. There was this one compelling study, I think it was at an Ivy League school, where they found something pretty counterintuitive. The, quote, smarter students actually had less grit on average.
Wow. Okay.
But here's the kicker.
Yeah.
It was the grittiest students, not the smartest ones, who had the highest GPAs.
So grit was a better predictor of their actual academic success than their, raw intelligence scores.
In that context, yes. It strongly suggests that grit can, compensate for maybe not having the highest IQ score. And maybe, just maybe, if things come too easily because of talent, you don't develop as much grit. You haven't had to push through the same way.
That completely flips the script on innate ability being the key. So if it's that important, maybe even more so than IQ in some situations, how do we measure it? It feels a bit abstract.
It does, but there's a tool. It's mostly measured using something called the grit scale. It's basically a self-report questionnaire.
Okay, so you rate yourself.
Yeah, exactly. It asks about your consistency of interests and your persistence.
Right.
Things like statements you rate yourself on, like setbacks don't discourage me, or I've achieved a goal that took years of work.
Right.
And look, even though it's self-reported, which always has limitations, it's proven to be highly predictive of achievement under challenging circumstances, at least for research.
That's useful. Now, one thing I find really encouraging from Duckworth's work is this idea that grit isn't necessarily fixed, right? It's not just something you're born with or you're not. Can you talk about that? Can we actually learn it?
Absolutely.
Right.
That's a core message. Duckworth is pretty firm in her belief that grit is something people can probably learn.
Okay.
She says it can wax and wane in response to experiences. You might be really gritty about your career, but maybe not so much about, say, learning a new hobby.
Ah, so it's context dependent too.
Sort of, yeah. It shows it's malleable, like a muscle,
Right.
right? The more you exercise it by pushing through challenges, the stronger it can get. Conversely, maybe too many easy wins don't build it up as much.
That waxing and waning part is interesting. But does that mean success is all down to the individual just deciding to be gritty?
Yeah.
Because that feels incomplete. Are there other things we need to consider?
That is such a critical point, and Duckworth does address it. She's very clear that focusing only on grit can make us overlook really important things like socioeconomic prerequisites.
Right, the environment you're in.
Exactly. She stresses it's not that one matters more than the other, but rather that they both matter. They are intertwined. You can have all the grit in the world, but if you lack basic resources, safety, opportunity, well, it's much, much harder to apply that grit effectively. They really work together.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It's not grit or circumstances. It's grit within circumstances. So, bringing this home for you listening, what does this all mean? How can we actually try to cultivate more grit in our lives, keeping that balance in mind?
Yeah, it comes down to some practical things you can do. First off, really embrace a growth mindset. That core belief that your abilities aren't fixed, that you can improve with effort.
So seeing setbacks as learning opportunities, not failures.
Precisely. Instead of I failed, it's what did I learn? Second, try to identify and really connect with your passions. That genuine interest fuels the perseverance needed for the long haul. It's easier to stick with something if you truly care about it.
Makes sense.
And finally, engage in what's called deliberate practice. That means not just putting in hours, but actively seeking feedback, focusing on your weaknesses, and constantly correcting mistakes. Okay. Really pushing yourself just beyond your current capabilities.
I actually saw a great example of that once. A teacher kept every student's tests in a binder, and they had dedicated time to actually go back and rework the problems they got wrong.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, just a simple routine. But it really drove home that idea of learning from errors, building that resilience.
That's exactly the kind of practice that builds grit. It normalizes mistakes as part of learning.
So, wrapping this up, this deep dive really shows that, well, true achievement seems to stem more from that sustained passion and perseverance rather than just waiting for innate talent to carry you through.
Yeah, it's about how you face those challenges, right?
Yeah.
Roadblocks or stepping stones. And connecting it all, the real power of grit isn't just sticking it out, it's sticking it out for something that has real purpose for you. Finding your own sort of grit code.
So, a final thought for you, our listener. What's that long-term goal you're truly passionate about? And how could focusing your grit, knowing it can grow, knowing it can often outperform raw talent, make that marathon journey not just possible, but maybe even deeply fulfilling? All right, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into a big idea, grit. We're looking at how passion and perseverance might actually predict success way better than raw talent. We've got some great research to unpack, mostly from Angela Duckworth. Our mission really is to figure out what's actually driving human achievement. So to really get this, we kind of have to start with Duckworth herself, right? Her own story has this fascinating twist.
Oh, absolutely. It's quite ironic, actually. Her dad used to tell her pretty often, apparently, that she was no genius. And then fast forward, she wins a MacArthur Genius Grant. And why? For research showing success isn't just about being a genius. It's about passion, perseverance.
That's incredible. And her path wasn't exactly typical either.
Not at all. She left this high-flying consulting job, McKinsey, big deal firm. And she went to teach 7th grade math in a New York City public school.
Wow, that's quite a shift.
Huge shift. It was right there in the classroom. She saw this puzzle. Kids with super high IQs, not always the top performers. But then others, maybe without those scores, they just excelled through pure determination. That gap, that disconnect between talent and, well, actually doing it,
Right.
that lit the fire for her research.
Okay, so she sees this in the classroom. How does she go about, testing it more rigorously?
Right, she needed tougher environments. So she and her team went to places like West Point, specifically during Beast Barracks, that incredibly tough summer training they put cadets through. Real pressure cooker.
Yeah, I've heard about Beast Barracks. Grueling.
Exactly. And they also studied kids in the National Spelling Bee, another high-pressure, high-focus situation.
So different fields, same kind of intense challenge. What was the pattern she found?
A really consistent one. Across the board, grit, this combination of passion and perseverance, it predicted success better than other things. Better than social intelligence, physical health, sometimes even better than IQ scores.
Wow, better than IQ.
Yeah. Now, it's not that IQ doesn't matter. Of course it does. But grit was often the deciding factor. At West Point, grit predicted who made it through Beast Barracks better than West Point's own very detailed scoring system they used for admissions.
That's a powerful finding.
It really is. And she developed a way to measure it, too, the grit scale. Just simple statements like, I finish whatever I begin.
So let's nail down her definition then. What exactly is grit for Duckworth?
Okay, precisely. She defines it as passion and perseverance for very long-term goals. The key things there are passion, like a deep, enduring interest and perseverance over the long haul.
So it's not just resilience, like bouncing back from one bad day.
Exactly. It's more like stamina. Sticking with something for years. She says life's a marathon, not a sprint. That's the core idea.
That really pushes against how we often think about success, though, this idea of the natural talent or the prodigy.
Oh, big time. Duckworth calls that the talent myth, and she argues it's actually pretty harmful.
Harmful how?
Well, because if we focus too much on innate talent,
Yeah.
it gives us an excuse, right? Oh, I'm just not naturally gifted at that. It lets us off the hook instead of focusing on the effort. And the research really backs this up. Most incredible achievements come from years of focused, hard, sometimes grinding work, not just talent falling from the sky.
Yeah, that makes sense. It shifts the focus to what we can control our effort. No wonder her book, Grit, just took off, became a massive bestseller, changed conversations everywhere from schools to businesses to sports teams.
Yep. World Bank, NBA teams, you name it. It really resonated.
So thinking about this, for everyone listening, what are the takeaways? What can you do with this? Well, first, maybe reflect on your own talent mindset. Think about a big goal you have. Do you lean towards believing success depends on innate ability or on your consistent effort? How could shifting that belief maybe empower you?
That's a great first step.
And second, try to identify one really significant long-term goal, something you're genuinely passionate about, willing to stick with for, months or even years. Maybe write it down. Make it your own little grit case study.
And here's something else to really think about, maybe the most hopeful part of it all. Grit isn't fixed. You're not just born gritty or not gritty. It's something you can actually cultivate. Research shows grit scores often increase as people get older, find their focus, learn how to stick with things.
So you can actually become grittier.
Exactly. You're not defined by where you are now. You can choose to build it. That's pretty empowering, I think.
That's all for this episode of the Deep Dive Cast. Thanks for joining us. We hope you gained some valuable insights. Be sure to tune in next time for another deep dive into the world's best ideas. Until then, keep learning and growing.